This is probably one of the most anticipated cases of the year. It's called the MONTECH King 95. We're gonna do a build, we're gonna test the thermals, I'm gonna let you guys know absolutely everything about this new interesting case from MONTECH. Let's jump in. To remove the side panel, there's a single captive thumb screw. Loosen up that thumb screw, pull the TG panel towards you, and then lift the panel away from the case. To remove the curved front glass panel, there's no screws at all. Push the front panel with your thumb forward, and then you can lift that panel away. Removing the top panel, you can just push up with your thumb on each corner of the top panel, then lift the whole thing away from the case. Lastly, the rear panel, single captive thumb screw. Loosen the thumb screw, you'll notice there's a little tab on the end, and you can just pull the rear panel away from the case. To gain access to the rear of the King 95, there is this huge hinged side panel. You remove 2 screws on the edge. Don't remove these ones, just the ones on the right-hand edge of the panel. And then this whole panel just swings open and you can just leave it like that. You don't need to remove this panel at all when building. Just leave it open. You'll be good to go. For power supply support, the King 95 supports power supplies up to 190 millimeters in length. And as you can see, there's plenty of clearance here for all the cables coming out of your power supply. And with this panel closed, it's not really gonna make a difference anyway. Also, something to note is there's a bracket that holds your power supply up. Look, I didn't even screw it in. It's like magic, it just floats there. Stop what you're doing, subscribe right now, click the subscribe button, do yourself a favor. The King 95 supports too many drives, if you ask me. Okay, for 2.5-inch SSDs, it supports up to 8 of them. 3 of them will mount to this area here. Another one will mount here. You can also mount 2 inside the hard disk sleds, which are removable as well with this thumb screw on the back panel. 3 more on the inside on the floor of the case. That's too many drives for any computer. Depending on the version of the King 95 that you get, on the bottom, for the Pro version, you'll get 3 120s on the bottom. You'll get 2 140s on that side panel and a 120 on the rear. On the Pro version, the bottom fans and the side fans are reverse pitch fans, so they look like they're in backwards, but they're not. The way they work is they basically just invert the pitch of the fan, and the bottom is intake and the side is also intake. Full fan and radiator support. On the top, you can do up to a 360mm radiator or a 280mm radiator. The way to remove the bracket for the top is there's 2 screws on top of the case. There's 4 screws rather. Removing the screws will allow you to pull the bracket out, and then you just drop it in the top or drop it like it's hot when it's ready to go. On the side, you can mount up to a 280mm radiator or a 240mm radiator, as well as 2 120 fans or 2 140 fans. On the bottom, you can mount 3 120mm fans or 2 140mm fans. You can't mount radiators on here, unfortunately, and I think this is maybe a missed opportunity, but I can see why they've done this, and it's to reduce the overall height of the case, because you need to account for a lot more if you decide to allow people to install radiators on the bottom. So there is that. You'll notice there's 2 thumb screws on the inside of the case here, and if you remove those thumb screws, it reveals its secret trick. This side can be swung towards the front of the case if you have fans on the bracket. And there's an included front mesh panel. You can then turn your King 95 into a regular layout case with a mesh front panel. Because on that rear panel that swings open, you can then install either 2 120mm fans or 2 140mm fans there. If you had this side panel swung to the front, so you have the front as intake, you can also install additional intake fans on this panel as well. As for cable management, there's 3 of these Velcro tie downs included in the case already. There's also quite large cable grommets towards the bottom of the case as well. They are very soft and pliable. There's 2 cable cutouts on the top, and then there's also a bunch of grommets on the side where you'd put your 24-pin power cables and any other cables that you're running through there. And there's also tie-down points along the back of the motherboard tray as well. For motherboard support, the King 95 supports from ITX up to ATX boards. You could do EATX if you really wanted to be a baller and try it out, but I would not suggest that. It also has a center peg that holds the board into place if you're building upright, because I'm chaotic and I like to build like that, and there's no screws holding the motherboard in right now. I can just pull it out, right? Center peg, it's a lifestyle choice. Maximum CPU air cooler height is 175 millimeters. For GPU support, you got a maximum supported length of up to 420 millimeters. 420 millimeters. You can also use basically any vertical GPU bracket that you like, because there are no support brackets for the PCIe cutout at the back. Quite often we get asked which vertical GPU bracket we use, and I always tell them it doesn't really matter because they're all the same. So if you see one, just buy it. They're all the same. For internal wiring, we've got a block for all the front panel connectors for your lights and switches, USB Type-C, USB Type-A front panel audio, and RGB. I'll come back to that in a second. On the front panel, we've got a power button with an integrated power light. We've got a reset button, a headphone and a microphone jack, 2 USB Type-A ports, and a USB Type-C port. On the front of the King 95, there's a diffuse RGB strip that runs the length of this front panel edge here. And that's all the RGB on the non-Pro version. The RGB cable plugs into your motherboard and syncs with your motherboard lighting with a 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB cable. On the King 95 Pro though, because it's got a bunch of included fans, it comes with a 10-way PWM fan hub, as well as an addressable RGB fan hub, which will allow you to plug everything into one spot, because there is quite a lot of wiring going on with that setup. The King 95 has a dust filter that runs the entire length of the bottom of the case, and it can be completely removed. And on the top panel and the side panel, it also has dust filtration there, which cannot be removed, but you can pull those panels off to clean them. That's everything I think you need to know about the King 95 Pro. For now, let's do our usual thing, build, test the thermals, and then together we'll talk about what I think of this interesting new case from MONTECH. In fact, maybe one of the most anticipated cases of the year. Let's do a build thing. for the thermals of the King 95. The way that we did this is I used the King 95 Pro and the King 95. I wanted to build one with the airflow configuration with the included mesh front panel and the other with the glass front panel, just to show you a little bit of a comparison between what the thermals would look like. For the mesh front panel version, what you're seeing on your screen right now is the thermals for this case are absolutely excellent. A few reasons for that. There's about 45 million fans in this, and the 7800X3D just doesn't get hot. It's not a hot CPU. As with the Blue Pro version that you're seeing on your screen right now, you know what the deal is with the 14900K. It's just a hot CPU, but I think in the King 95, it manages to keep those thermals at an acceptable level, being that there is a much bigger delta between the panels being on and off here, but you know, it is what it is, and I think for most use cases, it should be fine. Also, just noting, the only reason why I used this Galax 4070 in this build was because of RGB and the way it looked, but obviously the thermals for the GPU will be quite good here as well, given that you've got 3 intake fans on the bottom of the case, which will just push air directly into any GPU that you're going to be using. So overall, I think the thermals here are quite acceptable. As for all the hardware used in these builds, there's 2 PC part pick lists down below in the description, but I always put little cards on the video during the build section so you can see what that is as I'm building with it. Okay. What do I think of the King 95 and the King 95 Pro from MONTECH? First of all, the build experience in both of these cases, I mean, they're exactly the same, is excellent. The paint finish is really, really good. The attention to detail for all the little bits of mounting, especially those side doors on the back, are really, really good. I have one comment to make about the case though that I think most people might overlook. Who's using that many spinning rush drives these days? Honestly, if you're building a system that needs 5 drives, you're better off just building a NAS or something else. It's not very practical to have that many spinning rush drives or even 2.5-inch SSDs in your system anymore. 1 or 2 is fine, but 8, that's absurd. Cable management is very good. You've got that swinging hinge panel like I showed earlier in the video as well. And like I say with a lot of these builds, cable management's nice, and it's nice to have all these cable management things on the back of the motherboard tray and on the backside, especially in these dual chamber cases, but because it's a dual chamber case, there's so much room for cable management, so you can be messy and everything's still gonna fit. And I get that there's a degree of pride with people's cable management, but I think people waste too much time on that as it is. So if it fits and you can close the panel, the cable management's good in my books. Elephant in the room, standard thing with dual chamber cases. Oh, this is just another O11 clone. Who cares, guys? You know, Leon Lee didn't invent the glass box. NZXT didn't invent a glass box. All these other companies like Height and whatever, they didn't invent a glass box. Whoever invented the fish tank invented the glass box, right? It doesn't even matter if it looks like another case. What makes the King 95 individual though is that curved tempered glass panel. Now, if you don't know much about tempered glass and how glass works, it's sand, right? They melt sand, they make it really hot, and they make it into glass. Bending glass in a way that creates structural rigidity is pretty hard. I saw on MONTECH's website, they had a video clip. Did you see this, Claire? Of they put one of the King 95's front glass panels and they drove over it with a car.
That's crazy.
I hope Matt Lee does that, because I have a feeling that
if he
Matt
doesn't,
Lee,
we will.
Yeah, if Matt Lee doesn't do that, I'm gonna do it. And I just have a feeling like this is a very Matt Lee thing to do. He'll drive over a glass panel just because. There's only one single issue that I have with the King 95, and believe it or not, it's that curved tempered glass front panel. The thing is, with this type of glass, because it's designed to have a lot of strength in it, whatever they've coated the glass with makes it very hard to clean. Even when I peeled the plastic off, it just looked dirty and streaky. It's insanely odd. And if I'm wrong, but I'm not. There's obviously some fingerprints on it from me handling it on the other side without the wrap, but the side of the glass that was just covered is not in the face, you egg. Technically the other side should be clean because it's been wrapped, right? Very hard to clean. Yeah, it's just, someone's gonna find a joke in that. This isn't like the best test of cleaning in the world, but.
We tried newspaper
yeah.
and...
I mean, it's still.
We tried a few different ways
Yeah, it just holds oil really weirdly, especially when like the side of the panel that has been wrapped is dirty. It's a bit weird. It annoyed me only when I was like trying to shoot video. If you're not trying to shoot video, you probably don't give a shit. It's fine, I'm just being picky, but it is something that I noticed. Sometimes when we're reviewing cases, it's easy to find fault with cases, and sometimes I get comments with people saying, hey, you're so negative about every case, but a lot of the cases that we get through here, they just haven't had thought put into them, and they're generally pretty crap. But that's not the case with the MONTECH King 95. I think a lot of thought has been put into this case and a lot of nice attention to detail. And I said this the first time a MONTECH case came through the studio. I have no idea where they came from, how they're able to make cases with this level of quality, and how they are doing it for such little money. Because, ladies and gents, if you're interested in the MONTECH King 95, it's starting at $109 US or $149 US, filled with fans. That's insane. That's insanely good value. You're also getting that PWM and RGB fan hub in the Pro version. It also has full RGB control with the front panel of the case as well. There's so much to like about this case and almost nothing to dislike about it. I think the price is pretty well on the money, the build quality is excellent, and MONTECH, again, have nailed their cases. You know, what can I say? Now, the good thing about all of this is MONTECH's now selling in Australia too. So if you're an Aussie who's been bummed out because you can't get MONTECH, apparently you can get it here now. I think PC Case Gear is where you can get them from now. So yeah, that's it. Really good case. And if you want to see more really good cases, I suppose there's a video that you can watch over here. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. Hope you enjoyed doing whatever this was with me. I don't hate it. It's very hard to talk about something when I don't dislike it. It's really easy to hate, but it's much nicer to not hate something. Play some games, have some fun, and get that interstellar camo. Thanks for watching.